This episode is brought to you by my favorite podcasting software, Riverside, and I've got a 20% off deal so you can try it for yourself. Whether you're on episode 1 of your podcast or you have over 200 episodes like me, let me just say the right interview recording software makes all the difference. Riverside makes it simple to record and edit podcasts, quickly fine-tune post-production, and make great poll clips for easy reuse. We all know that repurposing content is the name of the game in 2023, and clip markers let me save things in real time to easily grab parts of the episode and create short-form videos for reels or other teaser content for the episode post-production. So there's no more fumbling with a pen and paper mid-interview to write yourself a post-it note that reminds you that your guest said something cool during minute 24 of the episode. On top of that, it's so easy for guests to use too. I've been a guest on more than 50 podcasts at this point, so I've seen it all. And both as a podcast guest and a podcast host, Riverside is my favorite. The quality and ease of use is so good, I've even been able to repurpose my podcast episodes as videos and finally get on YouTube this year. So to try it for yourself and get 20% off, head to elizabethmccravy.com/Riverside and use the code Elizabeth at checkout. Make sure to share your first clip with me and tell me what you think. Again, that's elizabethmccravy.com/Riverside, and that link is in the show notes. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravy, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Today, we're talking about building wealth as women and money mindset in that wealth building process. This topic is so important, and it's one I feel like isn't brought up enough. So often the focus is just on like making money in our business. And yes, like maybe a lot of tactical ways to do that. But what about building wealth for yourself and your family after that? When you go to pay yourself, what happens with your money from there? Today, I'm chatting with Erinn Bridgman, and she has built an empire when it comes to real estate investing. And additionally, she is a money mindset coach for female entrepreneurs. So we dive into both money mindset stuff in this episode and some of her story and strategies as a real estate investor, which guys, her and her husband own over 20 rental properties, and they started their business with real estate investing with funds from her photography business years ago, which I just think is so cool. And it's really fun to hear the realistic story of how something like that gets going. Erinn and I connected in real life at the Creative Educator Conference in Dallas, Texas in January. And it's really fun now bringing the things she and I talked about there to you guys in this episode. Now, here is Erinn to introduce herself, and we'll get into all the good content.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. So I'm Erinn, and I live in Indianapolis, and I am a money business coach for creative female entrepreneurs. So I help the entrepreneur who knows how to make money. So generally they're, making about at least $100,000 in business revenue, but they know they have some skeletons in their closet around how they think about money and how they manage the numbers inside of their business and in their life. I want to help women become wealthy. And so that's kind of the work that I do within my coaching business.
Yeah. And that's such a real thing. The way you just said that like speaks to me even of like knowing how to make money, but then feeling like there's skeletons in your closet. I love that. Tell us too real quick about the real estate side of what else you do.
Yeah. So back in 2014, we made an investment in our first property, and we did that through the excess we had through our photography business. And that was back in 2014. We had a rental property in a college town I was working in, And since then we've scaled. So now we have 20 doors, and we have about 3.4 million right now in flipping. So that's like our what helps sort of feed the beast. And it's the way that we are working to build long-term wealth and also, you know, cash flow into our lives. And our goal is that we will be at retirement in 5 years. And I love this term someone used. They called it desirement, not retirement.
Oh, I like
Meaning
that.
I'm not going to stop. I'm an Enneagram 3. Like, I'm not going to stop
Yeah.
working, but I no longer have to work for money, and I get to like live into desirement. So that's a little bit about my real estate biz.
Yeah, okay. Let's actually start with some of the real estate stuff because I want to get your full background for everyone and talk a little bit about that. And then we're also going to talk about some money mindset stuff. I have so many questions for you, Erinn. It's kind of like, where do I start
Yay.
within my giant document? But yeah, so you have 20 different doors. And explain real quick what you mean by that to people, just so people understand. Like, doors mean like just properties, right?
Right. So a door would be like a single family home would have one door, a duplex would have two doors, a triplex,
Okay.
three doors.
Yeah.
And for us, it's a mixture of single family and duplexes that make up the 20
Okay.
doors.
Okay. And when you bought that first property, you said in 2014, right?
Yeah. July of 2014.
Yeah. Okay. So using funds from your photography business, I know from listening to your podcast at that time, you also had a lot of student loan debt from both your
Yes.
master's program and both you and your husband's undergrad. But you made the decision to instead, you had some extra money and $18,000 actually. And instead of being like, I'm going to use that to just pay down debt, which is what a lot of us are taught, right? Of like, pay down the debt and that's like got to be your number one focus. You guys invest in real estate instead. So I'd love to hear like, how did that feel?
hmm
Like you guys were like a young married couple with, again, a lot of student loan debt. So just tell us all about that.
Yeah. So, and I grew up, I love this question, the way you asked it. I don't think anyone's asked me quite that way. How did it feel? I grew up with Dave Ramsey, like that was like Brent and I did Financial Peace University before we got married. And so I think some of his advice is very valid and very helpful. I like to stir the pot though and be like, and these are the reasons I don't agree with Dave Ramsey, because so many of us are like, that's the thing about Dave Ramsey. I actually just talked about this in the mastermind I was speaking in today, was he is not speaking to the entrepreneur. His
Yeah.
main audience is somebody who works 9 to 5, who has a very particular salary, who has a very particular take home. They don't have the ability to go make more money. They're not really having like this mindset of like risk and reward, And so for us in that time, we did a very anti Dave Ramsey thing that ended up being something that I teach and that I live by, and I'm so excited we did, was instead of looking at the single student loan we could pay off, we had done enough research, Brent particular, enough education at that point. His dad had done real estate investing. He's had a duplex and that was really successful, that we felt like, hey, we could take a stab at it. And anytime you're taking a risk, there's no guaranteed reward, but the more education you have, the more sure you're going to be in getting a return. And so not only did we have like education, not only did we kind of have his dad, but also we were living in a college town. In a college town where I had relationships, so I could fill the rental easier. College rentals you can get a lot more money for. Based on the town we lived in, you didn't have to pay a lot to get into real estate. And so all those factors played into us making the decision. I was like, it was a lot of money. My salary at that time was $20,000. So I made just over $20,000. And then we also had like free housing and stuff. So to basically put what was equal to my annual salary and to like put that into this hopeful thing, it takes a certain mindset, takes a certain type of thinking and a really like big devotion to your goals, which our goal was to be debt free and our goal was to like live a more expanded lifestyle. And so it felt scary, it felt exciting, and there was a part of me that just wanted to roll around in that money. I wanted to, like, that's the most money I'd ever had, in my bank account in adult life, and so I it was like, okay, but it was also like I think the beginning of like realizing the power button I had together as a team and the ability to like make money. And not one of my stories that I have to like continually reframe is I have to work really hard to make good money. I
Yeah.
was a door-to-door book girl. Like I grew up with like a crazy work ethic. And so to like really embrace, like you can make your money go work for you. And real estate is a way that I've learned to do that. So that's a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so I know you said that your husband had done, I know I've heard you say he was a Bigger Pockets listener, which we love Bigger Pockets too.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you
Yes.
guys get from where, like, just, I mean, it's probably hard for you to even answer this, but like get from that first property to now where you're in, what is it? You said 3 million in active flips, $7 million in investments overall. Like that's crazy and so big. What would you say? Like, how's that journey looked behind the
Yeah.
scenes? I know it's not all glamorous as it sounds when we say like $7 million in real estate, you know?
Yeah. Whoa. There's not even glamorous right now. Like it's like it
Yeah.
is and it isn't, you know, and that's how, and I love to just be fully transparent and say like it started with one door, and every door, every milestone comes with joy and comes with pain. And like Brett and I is saying is education's expensive. Like, hey, we're
Yeah.
learning, like, you know, and that's the posture that we try to take. So high level, we started with the one property and we got our confidence. And, you know, we had never bought a home. So my dad co-signed because we had no mortgage history. And we got like a just typical like Fannie Freddie loan. Like it wasn't, you know, it's just like what you would get. And, you know, that was back in 2014. So that's about 9 years ago now. And then we house hacked. So the next thing that we did was I was no longer doing that job anymore. So we bought our first home. And I think this is something super relatable that some people could step into is like, how can you be super savvy around your primary residence? And if you already bought one, maybe you have the ability to pull a HELOC off of your home, and then you can work to take the HELOC home equity line of credit and you can invest it and you could create something more with it. Or maybe, you know, I was just talking to somebody who's like, I want to rent my primary home out, this home, and I want to go get an upgraded home, but I want to keep this as an asset. Well, then a HELOC could be a way to be able to afford the next mortgage without selling your current home, as long as the cash on cash return and all of that makes sense. Okay, so I don't want to talk alphabet soup here though. So, you know, we house hacked, meaning we bought a home. It was a really crappy home. It was like $150,000. And we then funded the flip through sweat equity and through cash from the photography business. I remember Brett and I would always be like, well, more me than Brett. I'm like, where the heck's our money? And he's like, in the countertops that you're like, you know, have your drink on right now. It's like, you know, and that in the pain, like our friends would be like having fun on the weekends, like going and partying. Like we would be able to come out to the lake for a night and then we had to go shoot a wedding. Or, you know, we were like spending our Sundays like tiling the shower and painting the bedroom and stuff like that. And so we made sacrifices in order to get there. So anyways, being able to do that allowed us to get a home equity line of credit, which allowed us to continue to finish flipping our home and allowed us to start doing some flips on the side. It gave us the ability to have access to the equity in our home to be able to go and make other investments. And then that rolled into our now home that is our permanent forever home, I hope. And, you know, we ended up selling when we got the reappraisal, it was like right around 300. So we had 150, we cash flowed it all. So we had like over $100,000 in our line. And then when we sold for almost 500,000. Now we had added an addition, and so we added more. So we made a couple $100,000 on that we then rolled into this home, that we then were able to get a larger home equity line of credit. And then I think a really key part was we started to tap into hard money lending. And this is a huge thing because a lot of people think you need a lot of money in order to like get to the place that we're at. And I don't know if you want me to get into hard money lending, but I think that's the biggest myth that I like to sort of debunk is I generally tell people, and this is all dependent on your goals, and this is dependent on a lot of things, so keep this loose, but $40,000 is a great amount of money to start being able to invest in real estate.
Hmm.
And then you can leverage, and $40,000 doesn't have to be cash. It could be through your HELOC. It could be through unsecured debt that you get from investors. There's lots of ways to attain that, but I think $40,000, and then you'll have to work on getting that hard money lending up and things like that. So that's a huge thing that then helped us really excel and grow the portfolio faster, as well as starting to have a team. And so that's, I would say, like hard money lending, followed by having a team. We started a scale company with a business partner we're no longer in business with. All the love to him. It's all good. And so now we have people able to do, you can only get as big as you are. And so now having extensions of people who are going and finding properties for us, who are managing contractors for us, who are helping us to dispo our properties, has been another huge way that we've been able to grow from one door to 20 doors now.
I love those specifics of the HELOC, hard money lending team, and the 40,000 number. And I would agree with that when I think about us getting started in real estate. I remember when I first did some podcast episodes around how we were doing that, a lot of people thought we were buying everything in cash. And I'm like, no, we're not buying the entire cost of this. You're taking out mortgages on these properties, which then, is obviously a lot less money than people are thinking it would be. So I know you guys have a team and you do have some full-time employees within the real estate business. What would you say though, Erinn, like day to day for you even, or maybe you want to talk about Brent's experience, but just for both of y'all, managing this many properties of like, what does that look like? And that many, I feel like that's like so many tabs open in your brain. You know what I mean? Like, how are you doing that? Like, what does that look like?
Well, you find me in the messy middle. Like I said, in October, we amicably parted ways with our business partner. And so right now, Brett and I are trying to figure out what does that exactly look like. And so we're still working on it. So I don't want to try to be like, and it's a pretty present, all packaged the bow on top. But I think a huge thing is team. And you can have a team and then you can also micromanage the head of the team, and you can like not really feel the full support of the team. And so for us, it's really being very collaborative in our leadership, understanding exactly the vision that we want and how we want our team to execute it. And then the people that we have 3 full-time employees are like rock stars at what they do and fully competent. And so it's also been about creating really clear expectations, systems, support. Our meetings now have been more productive than ever. We're kind of using like the EO model where we have a 90-minute leadership meeting. We do like the good news, and then we do reporting, and then we do IDSing and action items. If I'm speaking French, maybe go check out some more around EO. And so that's been like super beneficial. And so just really empowering the people and the systems and having clear vision. My clear vision is that by the end of 2023, real estate takes 8 to 10 hours of my week, and I'm able to get a lot more back into my company. And so that's like, I'm working right now towards what systems, what processes, what people, how much can we do? How can we do it more effectively? I'm obsessed with being efficient. So that's like driving us and how we're running our company now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the clear-cut goals of that. And for people listening with EO, you call it EO. I always call it EOS, but I guess both ways. But traction,
no,
is that
I
the book
think
you're referring to?
You're right, EOS. I'm getting that confused with where we just joined EO. Do you know EO?
Oh, no.
Oh,
I don't think I do,
EO's
at
amazing.
least.
That's like a really cool like mastermind. Your business has to qualify and it's all this stuff. So you're right, EOS. That's something man, I will say the wrong phrases, the wrong EOS. Yes.
Yeah.
So
and Traction is a book that
there.
like explains that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I have more real estate questions for you, but I want to switch gears a bit, but not really because it all relates so much. But to talk about money mindset, because that's what you do and your other business, you're doing so much. But it's such a trendy topic, and I feel like there's a lot of different ideas around what it means, how to have a good money mindset. We carry so much stuff from our childhood into how we run our businesses financially. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to know, what would you say money mindset means to you?
Yeah. So I would say it's your thinking around money. Like most basically, like what is your money mindset? And that is such a buzzy thing. And like, oh, you're a money mindset coach. What does that mean? Like, does that mean we're like getting out crystals and saging and like, what, like laying under the moon? Like what does this mean to have like to manifest more money? And I come from like a background that's very like logically oriented, black and white. I always say like I have a little woo woo and I'm adding O's to my woo woo, but I come from a little more like brain scientific like space when it comes to money mindset with just like a little sprinkle of woo woo, I
Yeah.
guess. But what I do, what my like mode of teaching or how I do the coaching side of things is a really good blend of money mindset and money management. So it's out of our thinking, we create our actions, and we can kind of go through like a money loop. We could talk about that because that might be really tangible for your listeners. But alongside of that is like, how do you actually manage your numbers? And this is like, I guess for me, as I was coaching people, many creative entrepreneurs are amazing at what they do. They're incredible photographers, designers, illustrators, whatever. But they sort of inherited the business. They're like, oh, all of a sudden I have this business, which means if it's a business, not a hobby, that you're profitable, that you know your numbers, that you're paying yourself a consistent salary, that you're doing all of that. And yet many times that was the skeleton in the closet, was like, oh, like people are just like hoping and praying and kind of closing their eyes or like kind of hoarding the money in their business when they should be upgrading equipment. They should be paying for people on their team, but they're so afraid because they don't know the numbers. So as I help people with my money matrix systems, which is like understanding all the numbers inside of your business and life, you're building musculature in your thinking. You're starting to be like, instead of saying things like, I just don't know money. I just don't know math. I just don't know spreadsheets. You're like seeing yourself growing this musculature that helps you be like, oh, I am a woman who understands my numbers. I am in control of my finances. So I kind of use both of those together, and I do different exercises and different things. We talk through the sacred money archetypes, which is a assessment on how do you think, behave, and react around money. But I think that the thought loop piece could be a really helpful way to sort of like practically dive into money mindset if you would be open to that, Elizabeth.
Yeah, walk us through the money loop. I'd love to hear that.
Okay, so our brain is designed to keep us safe. Like that is the primary function of our brain. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a tiger that's going to eat us, or oh my gosh, like we don't have we don't have any food. We need to go hunt. Like our brain is constantly, I heard this stat said, which I want to get it was one of my mindfulness teachers said, you have 6 to 60,000 thoughts a day and 80% of your thoughts are negative. And the exciting thing about this is that we can rewire our thinking. We can change the actual like composition of our brains. This is like neuroplasticity and that kind of thing. And I also like to bring up, like you talked about, like we've inherited money stories and we have money beliefs, and like on an individual level, we each have that. We each have been influenced by our social sphere, influenced by our culture, but on a more like historic, like larger picture, I like to help people understand like the stats around women and money. Like women invest 40% less than men. Most have no emergency fund. 71% of women hold their assets in cash, which means they're not putting it into wealth building strategies. It's crazy that it wasn't until the 1960s that a woman could open her own bank account without a man. 1963 was when we had first legislation pushing towards equal pay for equal work. It wasn't until the 1970s, literally 1970s. So that's literally like less than 60 years that a woman could open her own credit card without a man. So I like to like say that to say like, okay, like this is a bigger issue and a like deeply systemic issue that women face, not just their own personal stories. And I like to say that for two reasons. One, to help give us grace, like, hey, it's not your fault. Like, it's not just, like, let's look at the context of what we're up against. And also to say, women listening to your show right now get to be on the front lines of changing history, because we have the ability as women to make the most money that we've ever made in history. And as entrepreneurs, we're the ones right on the very front, because we get the ability to go to the market and raise our prices, make more money, bring more into our world. And we're gutsy enough, whatever you think about your money mindset, it's crap, First of all, like, you're a woman who's going out into the world and saying, my product, my service deserves an energetic exchange of money. That's ballsy. You're doing great. So I like to just give that context to be like, okay, but because of all of this, we have stories, we have narratives, we have limiting beliefs that we have on repeat that we need to change. And so understanding a thought loop and how that works can really help us change how we think about money. So we have a thought. Out of a thought creates a feeling. Out of a feeling creates an action. And from action, we have result. So the thing that we are thinking about, whatever it is neutral, we'll say. It is the way it is. You have X amount of dollars in your bank account, right? You have current clients now, but you might not have current clients in the next few quarters, we'll say. So you could decide to think, oh my gosh, I don't have any business. Like, I have business now, but I don't have it in the future. What if I don't have enough to pay my bills? What if I can't pay myself? And so you get into this like scarcity, clingy, like space where you're in fear. And out of that, you're going to do an action. So then you might decide, I'm going to cut down on my marketing spend, even though you know that's where you bring in leads, because you're feeling a certain like clingy and scarce and fearful. You're going to start to you're like, okay, I got to cut. You might start to question your prices. Are you even like meant to be in the industry? And your result is like, you don't bring in, because you cut out the marketing, you end up not having a ton of leads, and you might find yourself, right, in a challenging place where you just feel really stuck. The same thing could happen, but we could have a different thought loop. We could have, so in this time, and many times you won't know what your thought is, so you have to think about the feeling. I'm feeling clingy. I'm feeling like I'm like ready to shut things down. Then you need to trace back, what am I thinking that's producing this feeling?
Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode. Do you know your profit margin? How much much money you've paid yourself this year as the CEO? What about how much you've spent in quarterly taxes this year? As business owners, we can often end up in the dark on this important money stuff, but knowing your finances is key to running a successful business. If you're ready to know your numbers, then you need my product Profit Sheet. It's my financial spreadsheet for service-based businesses, and it's absolutely incredible. In this Google Sheet, or it can be Excel if you prefer, you can track things like revenue and expenses month over month, tax savings and quarterly tax payments, how much you actually are paying yourself, expected revenue month over month based on your client payment plans, total revenue, expenses, profit, and so much more. You can go get it for yourself at elizabethmccravy.com/profit-sheet. I'm also linking to that in the show notes. This seriously is such a game changer, and I priced it super affordably for you so you can get started with it and start tracking your business finances and truly know your numbers. Now, back to my conversation with Erinn.
And then if you want to have a more abundant feeling, so if you want to move into a more abundant thought loop around your money, you need to identify the different feeling you want to have. I want to feel like I have movement and motivate. Like I feel like I'm having creativity. I feel energized. I feel like I'm abundant. Like I feel like I'm in a position of control. Okay, well, what would you have to believe to feel that? So what thought do you need to create and put on repeat to feel that? And so you might say like, I have enough clients right now, and I know I'm a creative, resourceful person that knows how to bring more business in. And that will help you. If you think that way, you're going to have some creative energy flowing and some motivation and some belief in yourself. And so then maybe instead of like cutting marketing, you keep the marketing going and you start to like show up really organically on social, just talking about your client wins, talking about your excitement, what's happening. And so naturally, because your energy is high and your vibe is high, and you kept the marketing efforts up, maybe you even amped them up, you have leads and your business is flowing. And so this is how it works, right? Like manifestation is like you had a thought that produces a feeling, that produces an action. It wasn't just magic. It was like you felt really confident. And so when you overheard somebody talking about a service you provide, instead of just shutting up, not saying anything, you feel really confident, you're high vibe. You like, that's actually something I totally offer. And so this is, I think, a really helpful piece is to understand a thought loop and understand how can I like reverse engineer, how can I change it? If you have a result in your life you don't like, okay, trail back. What was the action I took? Why did I take that action? Because of a feeling. Okay, what was the thought that produced the feeling? And then we change around the thought. Thought is what you have to change.
I love that. And I do that, the thought model you're just talking through all the time of like writing down and thinking about, okay, I'm feeling this way, but then why am I feeling this way? And looking at like, okay, what's the thought behind this? Do I really want to believe that? Do I want to believe something else? What's the feeling that's causing me to take this sort of action? I love how you just applied that to money because it does apply to so many different things. When we think about money and building a business as women, what would you say the difference is between wealthy and profitable in our businesses? How do we define those differently?
Well, how I define them, they fuel each other with one caveat. So profitable business is what we're going for. Like, like people talk about revenue and all that. Yeah, revenue is cool and sexy and it means something, but profitable is even more. To me, wealthy is about the transfer of the money from your business to your personal world. A business doesn't have a wealthy identity. A person has a wealthy identity. And so a profitable business will fuel a wealthy person by one thing, and that is salary. So this is how we create wealthy women through our companies, is that we pay ourselves this consistent salary, a salary that we raise, that we can count on, that we can bonus, that we can make more, because that's what creates the excess in our personal life to develop our wealth. And, I think wealth is not just money, it's our time freedom. It's so many components. It can't just be quantified. Somebody could be living a wealthy version of themselves that looks very different than somebody else. But I think that's the main caveat is that it is about your personal money, and that you're then taking the excess and you're strategically using that money to create a lifestyle you love and long-term wealth.
Hmm. And with that, like starting with our salaries and raising our salaries, do you have any strategies or like really practical tips for how we can raise our salaries as business owners? Or is it just like, raising our prices, cutting our expenses? Like, how would you say we do that
Mm.
practically?
Yeah, so I think like a really important thing is like every business is different.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to say. A couple key components here that's really practical. One, if you do not already have your salary on auto pay, put it on auto pay. So find a number that you know you can comfortably pay from your business and put it on auto pay. This takes out the human ability to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have enough. Like, you don't even have to think about it. It's just automated. So that's like something really practical, I would say. And then like a lot of us have companies that the revenue ebbs and flows. Like photographers make, wedding photographers maybe makes, 80% of their revenue in 6 months. You can still pay yourselves consistently in that. And the components you need to know is your profitability and your cash flow. Those are really, really important. And so you need to be able to see projections out in your company and see your end of the month bank account balance months out, because you could be sitting on like, dang, I have like $15,000 right now. I could really like bump and pay myself. But you don't have business coming out in the next 2 months. You don't have much business coming in and you have high expenses. That money's already accounted for. You can't actually pay yourself that. So you have to, a lot of times as we run our numbers in our business, we are like, okay, yep, I got a P&L sheet, I got a bookkeeper, an accountant. Like, I feel like I'm the CFO of my company. And I teach you need to have a 360 view of your number. P&Ls are present to past. You're reconciling transactions that have already happened. You're keeping a track and you're making decisions, like seeing some data. You have to have a present to future approach to your money in order to know, like, enough's coming in, I can raise it, I still have enough, I can outsource this. So that's another huge piece to the salary.
Yeah. I love that. I love the auto pay. I think it's so smart. I do that with my own payroll. I have like the minimum amount I'm going to pay myself every month. It automatically comes out. And then I have on top of that, I'll do more depending on that month. But yes, it is so hard because business can be unpredictable for a lot of listeners, myself being one of them. It's like, 1 month might be really high, the next month might not be. But generally speaking, you have some expenses that are consistent, even though those can vary as well. So yeah, I love the way you put that. So, okay, I want to go back to real estate. I feel like we're kind of jumping all over the place, but it all relates to each other, right? Because this is a way
It does.
you have built wealth. And I know, for you, I guess this is a two-part question. I'd love to know for you guys, why real estate? Like, why was that the way that you chose to build wealth? And then also, do you feel like real estate is a must to be truly wealthy? Or do you feel like there's another way that you're like, oh, if I was doing it again, I would do this other way besides real estate investing?
Mm. So why real estate was because my husband was obsessed with it, because he saw it exemplified by his dad, and he was learning and seeing how do most people build their wealth. And also, Brent is very handy. So it was like accessible in the sense of like, in that first property, we were able to transition like an apartment with a garage into like a 3-bedroom house with like $6,000 because Brent did the work. And so there was like some of that, like, and you heard me say, like, we did the tile, we basically flipped our whole original, like, first home. So, like, that there was some like skill and stuff that we had that like made it a little more accessible. Something we say is, do you want to be the unicorn that makes like a lot of money in a really like random way, like building Facebook or like some tech thing? Or do you want to be like the majority of people, the 9 out of 10 people that build significant wealth is in real estate? And so, like, everybody needs a home. A home is probably for most people, the most expensive purchase they're ever going to make. And so it's just, and also like, like I said, most people are making their money in real estate. So the tax breaks and the laws around that are made by people who really care and who really want that because their money's in real estate. So, you know, yeah, I would do it over again. And we live in a city, Indianapolis is a really hot city for investing. We can buy our probably average buy of a house is like $175,000.
Wow.
So like we have a low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
But yes, I would do it over and over again. Yes, I encourage people to do it. Like it might not be the first thing you do to invest, but I like it to be something that's on people's radars. And there's lots of different ways that you can invest in real estate.
Yeah. And with that, I know you mentioned earlier, like $40,000 being a good starting number to have. For people listening, I've gotten this message from people when I've done episodes with my husband, Adam, about real estate investing, people struggling with like the barrier to entry, both from a knowledge perspective and from a financial perspective and from a time perspective. Like all three of those can play a role, because even though people say real estate's passive income, it is like, we were just on your podcast when I was on, it's like, it's not all passive. I don't know. Would you even describe real estate as passive when you think about it from your own experience?
It's not passive yet for us. And it won't ever fully be passive in the sense of like, we're probably always going to decide what home we buy. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be some stuff like that, but I think it's going to be it is very scalable. And like, we're going to have full-time people who manage the portfolio. They manage the tenants, they manage like the maintenance, like, so it will be scalable, but not passive.
Yeah.
Just
and
like
for people,
yeah.
I mean, and there's so few things that are truly, truly passive. And that's how I feel about ours right now. It feels like some days it feels more passive because we are doing less properties, but other days, like we have some issue happen and you have to like stop whatever you're doing in your actual job to like work on that. But for people listening who are like feeling like the barrier to entry is a lot for buying properties, and even Erinn, I don't know if you feel comfortable speaking to this, but if you do, let's do it. But like right now, interest rates are really high, and that can scare people out of buying. Like when we bought our first properties, interest rates were amazing, and like home prices were lower as well even. So like, what would you say to people who are struggling with that barrier to entry, and even especially right now in the current like factors of the real estate market?
Yeah. Okay, so barriers to entry, I think it's like helpful to think like creatively. Like, first of all, first thing is to get knowledge. So, like, if you're feeling like real barrier to entry, you need to do some learning. You need to listen to the Bigger Pockets episode, listen to your episodes on real estate, listen to my episodes on real estate, get the real estate investment book. Like, that's the book I always recommend, kind of put out by the guy who does the Bigger Pockets. It's like, it's called The Book on Rental Properties. That's literally what it's called. Like, wow, what a sexy title. That's an amazing
We have
book.
the one called How to Invest in Real Estate. I think it's also
there you go.
It's just very straightforward titles.
Yeah. So like learn, right? Just like learn. I think another thing is like what we talked about was like house hacking. Consider some house hacking things, like whether it's you living in a duplex, like you live in one side, a tenant pays the other side. Maybe a simple house hacking literally like could be in Indianapolis, there's a couple really large events in the city that you can make really good money. So, and we did this with our last home, putting your house on Airbnb and making a couple grand every year. Like that is still through real estate. It's still making money through your house. Right. And so like those are some like maybe smaller tangible ways that you could like start to dabble with the power of making money through an asset like a home. And then I know we mentioned like a HELOC, figuring out that. And then if you pull a HELOC, maybe you could figure out which is through your home equity line of credit. Maybe you don't even reinvest your HELOC in another real estate venture. Maybe you have another way that you're like, hey, I know I could like do some stuff to my house, and my house already appraised for more. So you get an appraisal and you figure out, okay, and then I could invest this money and I could make this on that money for my HELOC. That sounds smart. I could do that. So I think there's lots of ways, like, it's about your connections too. And like we do some small like real estate coaching on the side, and like one of our clients, like They went and got a HELOC, and they're actually unsecured investors with us. So they make a certain amount of money just by lending us money to go use in real estate. So like we need unsecured debt because we have to cover 10% of purchase price and initial funding for scope of work for like the construction. And if we're doing, 10 projects at a time, that's like, we're not that liquid. Like we don't have $1.3 million in just cash hanging out right now. So we need to borrow. So there's so many ways to make money in real estate. And hopefully that just like gave people like a little bit of ideas thinking about, how could I do this? Do I need to learn? Are there small things I could do? Are there things with my primary home? Like stuff like that.
Yeah. I love those creative examples and the borrowing deal through a friend. Okay, another question on that. I know some of your early deal that y'all did alone, you had your dad co-sign, which makes sense. But you also did deals, if I remember correctly, you did a deal with your father-in-law, and then you had this partner, correct? Is that what I'm remembering? Or I had that wrong? I was going to just ask you, maybe tell a little bit more about that, but then also like, how do you feel about the idea, or have you ever gone into a real estate deal with like friends or family members, and like would you recommend it? Because that is another great way to like, if you don't have the cash for it, to be like, hey, we're partnering, maybe these people they're 70%, you're 30, whatever, to like get the money to do it.
Okay, so the part about our dad is that he was an investor. He lent us money, like unsecured debt. Unsecured means it's not tied to an asset. Different from like hard money lending, because the lending is tied to an asset. That's why it's hard. There's a hard asset associated with it. So he lent us money. He made like, we'll say 12% annualized rate of return on the money that allowed us to buy a house because we didn't have enough cash. And that was the first deal we used hard money lending. Then the case with a business partner, I have sort of like, I'm going to be real on this. I try to have the position of like, everything happens for a reason. And it's all like your posture of like, hey, I'm learning, I'm growing. I am a little more leery around partnerships at this point. I think you really have to assess like, what is the value I'm bringing? What is the value they're bringing? What is the vision? A huge reason we had to, just to be real, like, end the business partnership was there was not equal value in the situation, and the vision was so different. The type of homes he wanted to do, how fast he wanted to do it, like all of his leadership style and ours were so misaligned. And then we also have some smaller partnerships where we have like an LLC, which is just like an asset holding LLC. And we're just like super, and I would do that, which is kind of more what you're saying, like go in partnership with somebody. It just would have to feel like really, really clear and like really, for us, like people that would do this with us, like we have the machine. We can go buy houses. We have a really valuable thing. The other side would have to have something that is like equal in the value, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then also you got to be understanding of, if you do that, it's long term. Like, what are you going to split? Like $200, like, or $400, like a month? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of needs to be like, okay, this is because our plan is in 3 years, we're going to sell it and we're going to split, or if it's maybe a flip versus a rental. So yeah, that's just like my initial kind of like, make sure you have very clear expectations. Make sure there's a very equal, like reciprocal situation going on.
Yeah. Thanks for being open and honest about that. Because that is something I think could feel like a little solution, but I know that's so complicated doing partnerships, and we have personally not done that. It can work. But
like we have like LLC partnerships, and like, but it's very small. It's a very small part of what we do. And like, so, but it can work. And also like, I think like the people that we do unsecured money, like that run this money, they to me are a partner, right? And they're making, I mean, like they're making like 40,000 a year, like based on how much they have, so one of our lenders, like that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
Like
That's awesome.
and that is truly passive. Like they send the money and they make money every month, so there's other ways
That's
to partner
cool.
too.
Yeah. And for someone to be in that position that where they're lending you the money, is it like, how are they like, why and how are they doing that? I'm curious about that. That might be a weird question. That doesn't make sense. But like, what is their situation to
No.
be loaning you guys money?
Yeah. So two of them are our dads. So they have some trust in us. They're
Yeah.
retired. So they've got some cash piles that they would love to make, money on. They have a guaranteed rate of return. We're signing a
Yeah.
contract, you're going to get 12% or whatever. And they also know, like, even though it isn't tied to an asset, like if you want the money back or whatever, we do say like you have to give us a runway, because we would have to like sell off an asset or something
Yeah.
like that to get that much cash back. But we have hard assets that we have the ability, with the equity we have and the position we have, to get them their money back. And so I mean, I think that's, people believe in us, people like the rate of
Yeah.
return that they're getting. And even though it's not tied to an asset, there are assets that they know that we would be able to call upon to get the money back.
Yeah. That's really cool. Last question that relates to that, and then we'll move into like our rapid fire closeout questions. But you work with your spouse. You also have worked with family members in a lending capacity where you're paying them like interest on, like they're a partial investor. Like that's a lot of working with family situations. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
advice for working maybe both with your spouse and also even thinking about like working with your dad and father-in-law and family members?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I work with my spouse. I employ my sister full
Oh
time. I
yeah.
employ my brother-in-law full time, who's married to my sister, who has my four babies, my three nephews and niece. So we pay, my dad actually produces stuff for us in our flips. He's our special projects guy. So we pay him, we pay on interest. One of my best friends ever works for us full time. So like, dude, money and really important
Yeah.
people, like, all up in my life. And to be real, okay, there's like the joy of that. Like sometimes I just like, yesterday we have our Tuesday meetings, our Tuesday leadership meetings, and it's like I look around the table and I'm like such a like sap and like so communicative. I'll just be like, oh my gosh, you guys, and it's me and three dudes, you guys, look at us. This is the dream. Like, can you believe this? Like, we get to work together. Like, like there's so many moments like that. Or like we're out for Christmas dinner and it's like, woo! Like you look around the table, it's literally some of my best friends, my sister, my other sister and brother, and my husband. Like, this is the best,
Yeah.
right? There's so much joy in it. And so I find such pride and joy. And like, I get to help my parents in their retirement. Like, I get to help them. Like, that is amazing. And they took a chance on us really early on. And like, even though one of my goals is to like not need any unsecured debt in the next couple of years, it's like, okay, no, like if they want to keep making money on me, I'm gonna figure out how to do it, because I want them to like forever, benefit from taking the chance on us.
Yeah.
And also, it's really can be very messy. And actually, we just really recently had a very icky situation with a friend around money. And he's not icky. It's just the situation became very icky. And it kind of put me in a spiral like, oh my gosh, so many people depend on me, depend on Brett and I, that we really care about financially. And we need to be doing this right. And so I would say something huge is clear is kind. I think that's a Brene Brown, from Brene Brown. And so being really clear and upfront and like over communicative is like my biggest piece when it comes to money. Like when we split the business and we were like, hey, we're taking this on and this is your payroll, we were really clear. Like, this is changing. Don't expect a raise anytime soon. Like, we were like really honest. Like, this is what we can do and this is what we're gonna do and this is about it. And like even like our company culture, like before was just like we had socials every month. We were getting like food every Friday. Like the swag was Lululemon and it was every other month. Like it was just excessive. And I was like, just so you know, because I'm the one like running the budget, running the numbers. That will not be our new culture. Like we're going to do a social once a quarter and we will have swag like once or twice a year, you know, like, and just being honest, like being really upfront. And the icky moment with the friend was because things were not clear up front. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And like, also, like, I guess naively, like, remember the joy of it all. Like, remember the joy of the fact that I pay these people's salaries means I get to work with some of my favorite people every single day.
Oh, yeah. I love that. So much good advice in there. Yeah, and that's crazy how much family you work with. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize there was even that many as I asked that question. I just threw that in there. It wasn't even in our planned questions. But yeah, that's really cool, Erinn. Okay, so a few rapid fire questions to close us out. One, what's a purchase of $100 or less that has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or even just in recent memory?
Okay, I'm excited for this. Lululemon underwear.
Oh,
I'm telling you, it's like, it's nice. It's like what, 30 something bucks for 3 pairs. This is something I teach people as like becoming a wealthy woman. What are small ways that you can step into the identity of being a wealthy woman now? And like it's a really big thing for me is like upgrade the stuff that you use all the time. Why are you like drying yourself off of after a shower with a crappy towel that you've had for 10 years? Like buy really nice linens. You use it every day. My underwear, I'm telling you. I will be like, you guys, my life has just changed. The Lululemon underwear is the best.
Yeah, they make everything amazing. So I'm sure that's great. And that's so true though, that like sometimes the stuff you almost like forget to pay attention to the fact that like your towels are old or, you know, whatever random stuff like you're saying that you use every day. So I love that.
Yeah. Take a little audit. What are things that you use and touch every day? Maybe some like annoy you. Like maybe it's literally your hairbrush that's like the bristles are crazy and you should just buy a new one. Like think about that. Like do the small upgrades. Like it feels so good to do that and it helps you step into that new identity.
Yeah, I love that advice. What is a favorite failure? If you have a favorite failure, so basically something that like has a failure that was a fail but taught you something.
So something huge I was thinking about this that just happened is actually this flip we just put on the market. We took off the market. You know, it was our biggest thing we've ever taken to market. It, you know, probably in Nashville would be equivalent to maybe like a $2 million house or a 2.5. We put on the market for 970. And we just kept getting this negative feedback. We were so proud of it. We were like, oh my gosh, this is bomb. And it is bomb. This house is unreal. But we kept getting this like negative feedback, like, hey, the tile work doesn't look great. Some of the details aren't awesome. Like you kind of forgot about this. And we were like, oh my gosh, like mortified. And we made the big decision to take it off the market, like super big, like humbling moment to do it right. And, you know, what ended up happening, which was insane, is we ended up just penning it yesterday off the market. Somebody came, they decided they loved, like, it was so crazy, this story. And I'm just like, man, the universe totally had our back. Like, that's too crazy. But that was a huge thing and just like taught us and our team a huge lesson about doing things excellently, slowing down. It's okay to push the timeline, doing it right the first time, just so much.
That's cool. And such a recent like thing you learned. That's cool. Thanks for sharing
literally
that.
like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, most times like people are like, this thing I did like 10 years ago. Yeah.
Oh no, I guess I just had too many recent failures. I can't go that far back. I'll just pick one from right now.
Okay, so this last question, we kind of already talked about this, but I think it's so fun because you guys are trying to retire. And I know you said retirement doesn't mean you're not ever going to do anything because you are ambitious. But what's your goal retirement age? How soon are you trying to retire? And then when you think about your retirement, what are you most looking forward to?
Okay, so like I said, retirement for me is desirement, is how we're saying it. Our goal is to do it within 5 years. We have 20 doors. We need 50 to 60 doors. So that based on our lifestyle, based on how much we cash flow per door, all of that, that's what we need to do. So we've kind of reverse engineered how many doors do we need to add to our portfolio over the next 5 years to get there. And honestly, like my life's not going to change that much. Like the biggest thing is just going to be that I no longer like have to make money. And so like that's basically it. Like will I still travel like I travel now? Yeah. Will I still be on podcasts like this? I sure hope so. Like, I think a lot of my life won't change. It just might be a little amplified. Like I might feel a little more freedom to like travel a little more or, that kind of thing. But I'm going to be still doing me.
Yeah. I just love how much y'all have that mapped out. And I think that's something good for listeners to take of like, hey, you guys, we can kind of planning like deliberately and knowing the numbers like to get you to that goal. Very cool.
Yeah, just reverse engineer it.
Yes. Erinn, tell everyone where they can connect with you, both on like, on your business side and the real estate side, if there's anything there and all that good stuff, your podcast, all of it.
Yeah. So I'm super active on Instagram. It's just my name, Erinn Bridgman, Erinn_Bridgman. And I'm sure just do it in the show notes because it's spelled weird. 2 N's, no E on the bridge. And then my podcast, the Wealthy Woman Podcast, it's a great place to come. Of course, you're going to be on the show. Brett and I get on there and we talk about real estate. I talk about money mindset, talk about money management, all of those types of things. So the show is a great place. And then I have a Wealthy Woman checklist that I think is an amazing thing. It's totally free to download. And I think that really goes through like mindset, business management, and personal management. I've had people like literally print it off and have like a meeting with their partner. Like we are going to go through all of these things. So that might be a real helpful thing for people, just like a resource. So yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I'll put that link in the show notes for that guide or checklist rather. Yeah, awesome. This was so fun, Erinn. Thank you for opening up about your real estate story and all of your money mindset tips. This was really fun.
This is great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast today and for staying until the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my online course and coaching program for designers, Booked Out Designer. In this program, I teach you how to build a successful in-demand booked out business as a designer. You'll learn everything from the exact experience I take my clients through to things like figuring out your niche, mastering discovery calls, pricing your services for profit, creating contracts that will not cause you legal troubles, and my exact social media strategies to book clients. You even get to watch recordings of me in actual meetings with my actual clients so you can really learn through what you're seeing. We take things you're learning on this podcast and so many topics I never even cover on this show and deep dive into them. So in addition to the amazing course, the course is 9 modules of teaching with over 90 lessons. You get group coaching calls with me and access to an exclusive Facebook community of designers just like you. And fun fact, this isn't one of those kind of Facebook groups where the founder never comments on posts or you never see them in there. You'll find me in there all the time, ready to help you out with any business question you have. So to get info on the course and to see when the doors will be opening again, head to elizabethmccravey.com/BOD, short for Booked Out Designer. I hope to be able to coach you and teach you inside of the course soon. And don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And a great way to support the show is to leave a rating and review, share it with a friend, share it on social media. All of that will help get the word out. All right, I'll see you again next week.